Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Distribution Maintainers meeting for the week of April 26th. Looks like in the agenda under the topics section, there isn't anything pre-populated. Was there anything, was there any topic that folks wanted to talk about? Either something new or one of the items we want to spend a little bit more time on from the maintainer discussion issues? Sounds like no. So if we can jump over to the maintainer discussion issues, it's going to be a pretty quick meeting today. Two from the last couple of weeks are linked in here. These are just call outs to take a look at these. The first one is over in the operator. Prometheus RBAC resources are not created. This is raised from an end user pointing out the fact. So in this case, their Prometheus operator was creating a different namespace. And so the service account that comes with the operator installation of the Prometheus operator installation was not accessible to our Prometheus custom resource. Through maintainer discussion on that to engage with the maintainers of the operator to see what we want to do there. The other item was logged by Jason, a proposal around creating a validation script for the secret content in the charts CNG.
Everybody a second to look over this. I created this and it's in the CNG because this is mostly where people run into it most, seemingly. But it is in no way isolated to the CNG. Case in point, people configure GitLab RB and they don't properly actually wrap it in the right amount of here doc. You have raw YAML and somehow, why doesn't this work? Well, we kind of have a completely broken string. So it's just a matter of like, how can we manage to somehow validate this on a regular basis and preferably in some form of usable validation for multiple assets. Whether you're looking at GitLab secrets and its content, or the secrets in Kate's, or the conversion of those back and forth, or just validating that somebody's actually put in a provider that actually will work with OmniAuth.
Did anyone have? And oh, go ahead.
Is it worth considering alongside this, some sort of script to actually add the secrets? So, something where we prompt them for whatever secret and then it handles encoding it in the proper format.
Effectively, the two would kind of go hand in hand. In theory, you could use this same thing for generating as validation. For the moment, it's really focused on if you provide me what the things that I'm supposed to verify are. Think of it like a slightly more informed version of JSON schema. Right? We know that Workhorse needs to have a 32-character random alphanumeric string. Right? Same thing happens for a couple of other secrets. Some things need to have valid JSON. Some things can take YAML. Some things have to have a very specific object. So it'd be nice if we could easily be like, okay, well, I need you to give me your certificate, and I can actually verify this is a functional public key, and this is a functional private key, so I can actually do TLS with it. The off chance that somebody supplies a partial chain for the certificate and the public key for the CA instead of the certificate, because we've seen it done. So we can generate some amount of these fairly straightforward because like I said, the workhorse ones we know very well. And we have the same basic code in place, whether it's in the chart or it's in Omnibus. We have to know where to stick it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and definitely the validation probably has more value because people like to generate things themselves at times. So even if we provide them a script to generate it, many people will still do it themselves. I was just thinking alongside, like there are certain things where there might be value rather than validating, say, use this to generate the secret. And we don't have to validate because we create it.
Yep, 100%. And like this, yeah, this does cross tie to can we generate, can we validate it, can we convert, right? One of those things that we have is there's an open issue wherein in certain conditions the Rails secret, if you have more than just the secrets YAML in it, you can actually overwrite that content and it actually remove keys from that secret. Kind of like, I ran into this forever ago. When you stash all your secrets, you can have all of your secrets in all of your actual application secrets in one secret, but if the Rails secret is in that same secret, everything else gets wiped out.
Yep.
Oops. And there's an open issue for that, but most people aren't going to run into it.
Fair enough.
But it's a particular indication where, like there's no reason that all of these things can't coexist to a degree. And, with the GitLab secrets JSON from the Omnibus, it's basically got all the same things in it with a very slim view on the side from GitLab RB.
Mm-hmm.
So there should be no reason we can't easily convert these things back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up and describing it for us here, Jason. And yeah, so please folks take a look and leave some feedback on these issues. And then also linked in that the section header, the maintainer discussion issues. Of course, we have our backlog of maintainer discussion issues. Please throughout the week, be taking a look at some of these and try to see ones that maybe we can move forward and throw some feedback on. Before we move on to what merged in the last couple of weeks, was there anything else anyone else wanted to bring up or talk about? If not, let's jump into just highlighting some of the things that merged over the last couple of weeks here. Jason, there's a couple of these in the Helm charts from you first here.
So it's been a little bit of a long time coming, but we now have pass enabled by default. We didn't quite squeeze it into 14.10, so it'll be there in 15.0. It'll be not a breaking change, but a possibly surprise change. So one more function and one more hostname. We have done a number of things related to the container version to make sure that we can actually account for the versions of the software and or runtimes that are in them. This particular case, we're sticking anything that has Ruby or Go. We're making sure that these versions are also included in that container's version checksums. This ensures, in particular case, Ruby 2 stuff doesn't hit Ruby 3 stuff and vice versa, which we ran into an issue first where they were competing over who was building Ruby, and then they were competing over who was building Gitaly, because the Gitaly didn't actually have Ruby version accounted for in its own version. Therefore, you'd get a version from Ruby 2, which Gitaly consumes, and then you'd get another version by accident with Ruby 3, and then they'd start fussing over who built the image last. But because the tags look the same, they never got rebuilt. So we've fixed that. The Git base has now been entirely removed. There's two major sets of changes there. The first one is dropping most of the dependencies on Git base, and the last one is actually removing Git base by merging it into Gitaly. 99% of the GitLab application does not need Git itself. Therefore, packaging it into every single container was not actually required. It took a couple of steps, mostly because this is not a small image, and a whole lot of images had to change as a result. This, thanks to the work from the Gitaly team, we can now actually use this as the basis for a large number of underlying image changes to clean up and reduce sizes as well. There is also, it's not here yet, let me add it in a second, is ongoing work from some SREs to actually fix up the container patterns, because it turns out we finally know exactly where sh-c is coming from in all of our top outputs. Turns out a misparameterization of the CMD line in our Docker file is the reason half our containers aren't actually running as PID1, because the way Docker creates it, with the way we presented it, results in exec not actually being transfer me to PID1, because it's calling shc and then calling our script, and bash for shc is actually PID1. Hence why we had some signal issues.
Yeah, and then the Helm charts one that I had merged was around incremental backup support. So this was something added previous release in the upstream, and then the feature was enabled by default in this past release. And it broke our charts test. And why that happened is now there's a new directory structure inside backups that includes a timestamp. And our charts test is trying to verify that an old backup and a new backup are, file similar during the test, and so it was failing. So got in a fix there to get that working. Then over on the Omnibus side, Paulo isn't here this morning, so I'll read out a couple of these. But he merged some changes that around database related items. So the first one was moving the geo tracking database from a separate database file into database YML. And then the other one, he merged a change from Robert around getting the multi-attorney support in PG Bouncer merged. And then also in Omnibus, Robert, you had some items here.
Yep. The big one for me for the last cycle has been the update of our builders. So we got a bump for Node.js and Yarn. We also got a couple other things brought in with the new image. We're now actually using Ruby 275. Ruby Docker is now using Bullseye. We have access to Alma Linux builders, so those will be coming soon for our enterprise Linux packages. We added Scopio to the Ruby Docker image as well. So a bunch of toys came in. I think we cut 3.0 and then we cut 3.0, 3.1, 3.101, and it just kind of, we had a lot all at once in about a 2-week period. So lots of new toys. And the other one that's not out there, but I just want to kind of make it aware, we have an ongoing issue with the QA pipeline. So if you're trying to trigger the QA package and you see no tests run, we are working on that. There's a thread in Slack. So that will probably go in today at some point. We merged and fixed this for it last night, late. But that's coming. So that's the other thing that kind of happened in this last cycle, but it's so new that it's not quite all resolved yet. And I'll pass it over to, I guess, DJ to read for Hossein.
So one from Hossein here is related to merging a Helm chart for the operator. Dimitri, I know you had spent some time reviewing this one as well. I don't know if you could speak to this a little bit.
Yeah, this one was massive, actually. Mitch pitched in it too because we kind of went with the 3 reviewers on this one. So right now, what this did is change how we bundle the operator in the end. So we used to use a lot of customize, and now we switched over to the Helm with a little bit of customize, taking us slightly further away from the default operator SDK behavior, which may or may not present, issues moving forward, as in if we get to stick to the operator SDK, but I don't think we are anymore. So yeah, that's a brand new change. Discussing it a little bit among ourselves, the decision has been made that we're not going to publicize the Helm chart availability just yet until we sort out that it actually works properly in CI and we don't have much issues with it. But it does open, it actually closes a few tickets that were sitting on the side that were harder to target with the customize. And now with the Helm chart, it's easier. Like, for example, the validation webhook naming and things like that. So all in all, it's a great step forward. It's such a massive change. We're bound to see some issues. My gut feeling says something has to go wrong in the end. But other than that, it's a great contribution from our community member, and it's a heavy duty contribution. And Mitch, I think you're next.
Yeah, on that previous item, big shout out to Aaron Walker. He's contributed several times to the operator now and has been a huge help. So it was a big undertaking to rip out the customized stuff, but it's going to be much nicer to work with going forward. 3 quick ones. So we ripped out the OpenShift 4.7 resources. So any OpenMRs that you see failing trying to deploy there, that's why. So you can rebase and then it'll get rid of that config. I know Dimitro is actually going to go back and redeploy 4.6 because that apparently has a longer term support version, and we'll have to make sure we test against that when submitting to upstream operator hubs. Operator docs now auto-publishing to the docs website, so huge thanks to Axel and others on the documentation team for helping us get that going. So we no longer have to manually copy over those documentation edits. And finally, the operator releases are now managed by release tools. So thanks to Blue for working on that integration, and of course the release team for helping out with that as well. It looks like the release went fairly smoothly with this past one. The only hiccup was that there was a Red Hat certification job that failed, and it has since been removed. So it should be a big help in terms of taking out manual work. That's it.
Yeah, before we wrap up the meeting, is there anything else anyone wanted to discuss? If not, I think we're good. Thanks, everyone.